It hasn't taken long for the realities of government to catch up with Tony Abbott. He obviously hoped that once he was in the chair, he could control the agenda. All those tiresome little distractions could simply be brushed aside and the majesty of his rule could take over. But of course it hasn't happened like that because it never does. Right from the start there were problems. First up, of course, there was this composition of his cabinet. It turned out that keeping it full of has-beens to ensure stability was much more important than promoting women to cabinet to ensure equality and, for that matter, merit. So he got a caning for that. Then there was the public service. His sackings of 3 permanent heads and demotions of others, threats to make sure they resigned for others, made it very clear that there was a lot of malice and spite involved. It was more about petty revenge than it was, again, about quality of service. And now, the thing he really didn't want to haunt him has come back: gay marriage. He had barely left Government House after the swearing-in when the ACT Assembly introduced its bill to legalise gay marriage in the ACT. Well, you may say, so what? Marriage is a federal responsibility, and in any case the federal government controls what the ACT Assembly can do and can't do. So all Abbott has to do is snap his fingers. But snapping his fingers would be a very bad look right at the moment. The point is, it does take a little more than a finger snap. If Abbott is to veto those Assembly bills and get the acts repealed, he really only has 2 choices. One is to go to the High Court, which would look very much like buck passing and is always a slightly unsure thing to do and would drag on forever, so that's not much of an option for him. Or he can recall Parliament and put a bill through both houses to override the ACT legislation. But to do that, of course, brings gay marriage right back into the spotlight, which is exactly where he didn't want it. It reopens all the questions of whether you would have to give his own party members a conscience vote, something he's been procrastinating on and was hoping to put off just about forever. And it means that he is treating the issue of gay marriage very seriously. Whereas, of course, during the election campaign, he tried to dismiss it as just a passing fashion, a bit of a fad, not the sort of thing a serious politician would take any notice of. But he's going to have to face up with it. The only point in his favour, probably, is that if he does go to the High Court, the argument the ACT Assembly will mount is that its legislation does not really affect the federal jurisdiction, because the federal jurisdiction is about marriage between a man and a woman. And of course, gay marriage is very different from that. It's not the same thing at all. But hang on a minute. Wasn't the whole point about gay marriage to make it exactly the same thing? Marriage equality, no difference. So it's going to be a messy business whichever way it pans out. And Abbott will just have to learn to live with it, as he will just have to learn to live with all the other distractions, all the other diversions, all the other unexpected problems which are going to bob up over the next 3 years, if he lasts that long. I'm Mungo McCallum.